Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, quite a few different styles, and I think it's fair to say that these guys are fairly respected. One of the more prominent gypsy breweries that you'll find here in Sweden, in fact. So the one that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I've not tried from them before. It's a style that I very much enjoy and one that's been getting a little bit more attention in recent times. So really curious to see how it turns out. Hopefully it's another good beer and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So let's crack on with this review then. So for this one we are going to head up towards Gothenburg once again, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast, and we're going to have a look at another beer from In Brewing. So this particular beer is called the PreemYum Pils. It comes in at 5.6% ABV, and I think the name tells you what style this one is. But this beer was released here in Sweden as part of the Lokal och Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget for August of 2021. So yeah, my first lager beer from In Brewing, if memory serves me correctly. I've had IPAs, I've had Imperial Stouts, but I don't think I've had any lagers thus far. So this one should make for quite an interesting review. And as you've seen on the channel, over the last kind of 2 years or so, there has been a lot more lager beers appearing, and I'm enjoying it. I love reviewing different lager beers. But yeah, hopefully this is a good one. Let's crack on with the review then and see how we go. My first lager beer from In Brewing. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from In Brewing before, and we will no doubt add some more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about In Brewing. So In Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are a gypsy brewery based in Gothenburg, and they started up in 2012 under Pelle Frost. So they do have planned to have their own brewery at some point in the future, but right now they're brewing their own beers at different places around the city. But in the early years they travelled Europe making collaborations with other breweries, but in more recent times they have been brewing all of their beers in Sweden. But they started brewing with Brewski in Helsingborg, and one of their brewers, Lucas, actually worked full-time at Brewski, brewing both the In and the Brewski beers, but later they also brewed for a while at West Coast Brewery as well. But at one stage they did have three brewers. There was Lucas, Victor and Andreas, and they had always been into the big kind of fruity American IPAs and the Imperial Stouts and things like this. But Victor and Andreas were the original guys of the brewing team, whereas Lucas was headhunted from another brewery and he was their head brewer. But they always worked as a team to create the beers that they were releasing. And in 2015 they were rated as one of the top 100 beers by Rate Beer, which is a pretty good accolade when you consider how American dominated it is. But in 2019, we step forward a little bit. In 2019, they were aiming to scale up their brewing to around 100,000 litres, while Pelle is making efforts to get the beers exported across Europe. And these days, Lucas Monröd works for Stigbergets Brewery in Gothenburg. But every year these guys host their own festival, which is called the In Beer Fest, and some of the In guys are also involved in the two Brewers beer bars in Gothenburg, along with Dugas Brewery and Electric Nurse. And you'll find those, the original one is Tredje Långgatan, and I would recommend that you go and check that out. You can check out my Out and About video that I did there back in 2019. If memory serves me correctly. But yeah, that's definitely worth having a go at. You'll get some really nice In stuff there. You'll get some good Doogie stuff that you won't find anywhere else, and also some interesting Electric Nurse, and some very good food as well actually. But as of August 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 90 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and it's mainly IPAs and Imperial Stouts that you'll find from In Brewing, but they are starting to brew a few other styles from what I've seen, so they are definitely worth checking out for some of those as well. But the Pils is a style that I very much enjoy, and I was just really curious to see how these guys would interpret it. So here we are. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about All In Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that is it for the moment for the history section. Let's get on and have a look at the beer itself. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. There you can see All In Brewing. It is very, very nice. I think I do have to admit I like the can design on this one. This would be pretty cool. If they got this in a black 440ml can, this would be awesome. But you can see they've got Beer Bibliotech cans here. But yeah, All In Brewing at the top there with the little hop flower, premium pills, and at 5.6% ABV. Apparently this one is in the German style, so I would expect a more kind of crisp and clean pills compared to the more kind of bready and yeasty Czech one. And it's got Czech and German hops in it apparently, so probably a little bit of Hallertau or Tettnanger and some how do we say, and also some Czech Jatets or Sats as the Germans would call them. But yeah, 330ml this one. I think I paid about 25 Swedish krona for this, so that's about €2.50, £2 sterling roughly, and somewhere in the region of $3 American. But 330ml, I will moan about that because I do think lagers should be sold in at least 440ml or half litres. So yeah, I think that summarises my thoughts on that one. But let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I'm very curious to see what this one has in store for you, or us I should say. But yeah, 5.6% German style Pilsner this one. 5.6% I think is a little bit heavy for a Pilsner as well. It's a little bit higher in alcohol, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, there we go. As we say, my first lager beer from All In Brewing. But yeah, let me just line this back up again so that my OCD is happy. And there we are. So, as you can see, if we shine the light through this one, it's poured a lovely, very bright straw golden yellow colour. The head on this beer comes in with about one, it's about 1/3 finger of a frothy, I would say white, kind of slightly creamy coloured head. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there. But I mean, overall, it looks pretty nice. Not out with the realms of possibility for a Pilsner, of course, but it's certainly unfiltered as well. Quite often the German Pilsners tend to be filtered actually, so this one certainly is an unfiltered Pilsner. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But the colour of the beer, of course, is dependent on 1, the type of malts that you use, and 2, the length of your wort boil. Longer you boil the wort, of course, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you'll get a darker colour of beer. But yeah, this lovely bright yellow golden straw colour is exactly what you would expect from a Pilsner beer. So yeah, but a nice unfiltered kind of hazy sort of thing, but that is something you would associate a little bit more with the Czech side of the style and the German side. But you can see the head has just faded away to be a very kind of thin foamy layer. Now, just to give you a brief overview of the Pilsner. So the Pilsner as a style originates from the Czech city of Pilsen, which was once upon a time part of Moravia, and it still is part of Moravia, but once upon a time Moravia was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The beer style Pilsner was created in the 1840s, I want to say, or was it 1860s, I forget, by a Bavarian brewer who went there, and that Pilsner is Pilsner Urquell. So these days you have the Czech Pilsen beers, which are slightly more bready and yeasty versions, whereas you've got the German ones that are the more kind of dry and crisp versions actually. So yeah, you have the German Pilsner and the Czech Pilsen. But these are lager beers, of course, so that means bottom fermenting yeast, cold temperature fermentation between 8 to 12 degrees Celsius. And ales, of course, ferment with top fermenting yeast, 15 to 18 degrees. But there's lots of different types of lagers. Pilsner is only one kind of bottom fermenting yeasted beer, I guess we could say. So yeah, that is a brief overview of the Pilsner style. But the original Pilsner, of course, is Pilsner Urquell, and I would recommend that you try that. It's a lovely, lovely beer. But as I said, in terms of the colour and things of this, it certainly looks exactly as you'd expect from a German Pilsner, but it looks a little bit more like a Czech Pilsen because of the unfiltered appearance that it has, should we say. But yeah, nothing untoward too much about the appearance of this. Let's take a closer look at the aroma though and just see how we get on. That does smell very nice. It does smell very good. So as I always say in these lager beer reviews, what I look for in these lager beers is authenticity. That's what I'm after with these. So straight away, you get a lovely little bit of that kind of crisp German Pilsner quality there. I always find that these German Pilsners have a bit of a kind of wet bready backbone to them, and just straight away in terms of authenticity, this beer gets a big thumbs up from me. I'm looking forward to tasting this now. But yeah, aroma wise, as I say, there's a sort of wet white bready character to this one. You certainly get a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty note to it. So yeah, as we say, a lovely sort of smooth, soft, wet white bready character in there. Wee bit of a more kind of bread crusty type element too, which I like. And you also get, you can smell the Pilsner malt in this. You can get that sort of crisp Pilsner malt thing. As I've explained to you in various videos now, Pilsner malt is very annoying to kind of describe because it's more about the vibe that it gives to beer rather than the aroma itself. So you can smell that big crisp Pilsner quality out of this one, which I very much like. But you've also got the kind of sweet side of the Pilsner malt in there as well. You get a wee bit of a kind of caramelly biscuity note to it, which I very much like. And you've also got that you've also certainly got a wee bit of a more kind of almost honey-like note and a wee bit of a kind of caramelly brown sugary quality. So yeah, McVitie's digestive, a little bit of caramel, a little bit of honey. These are all things that you can pick up in the middle of the nose, and these are things you would expect of the Pilsner malt as well. So yeah, the aroma that comes out of this beer, I think, is very, very nice in that sense, and it is very authentic. It's proper German Pilsner malt that's in here, I'm pretty sure. But on the hoppy side of things, it is quite interesting. I don't think we need to say too much more about the malty side of this beer, but on the hoppy side of things, you can certainly pick up a nice little bit of that earthiness that you expect of the noble hops. That's coming out quite nice in this one. So a nice little bit of an earthy noble hop character at the back of the nose there. As you come further forward, you get a little bit more, you get a lovely kind of bright floral aromaticity there. You can smell a little bit of the slight spiciness of the Czech Žatec in this one, but you could kind of feel that being countered a little bit by the more bright qualities of the German hops that are in here. I don't know exactly what hops are in this one right enough, but I suspect it'll be Czech Žatec and German, German Hallertau probably, Tettnanger, there could be some of that in it. But yeah, you can feel a little bit of depth to the green component in this beer because of that mix of hops, the spiciness from the Czech ones, the kind of brightness, if you like, from the German side. But at the front of the nose, the grassy side of the beer is quite wet and leafy in a sense. You get a lovely bit of grassiness to this beer, wee touch of zestiness in there too. But aroma-wise, as we've said, as I've repeated a few times now, this beer is just very, very authentic, and that's exactly what I would want in this style. But on the fruity side of things, you get a little bit of a kind of sultana type note to this one, those dried white, green, grapey notes. So a little bit of a sultana type quality, a little bit of a kind of apricot-y note underneath, and you also get a wee bit of an oily kind of peary and apple-y kind of thing coming out of it. So I really like how this beer goes about its business in that sense, absolutely. So yeah, it's got all those fruity notes are exactly what you would expect, and it's got a wee bit of just a kind of grassy, zesty character as well, which I can certainly appreciate. So yeah, I think we can have a go at this one and just see what we think now. The aroma is certainly very, very authentic, and it does lean towards that crisper side of the German Pilsner rather than the more bready and yeasty side that you would associate with the Czech Pilsen. So yeah, I like this beer for sure. Yeah, just take a bit of time to ponder over the aroma. There's a few things better in life than smelling a nicely crafted German style Pilsner. So yeah, take a bit of time to ponder that over before you get stuck in. But I think it's about time that we have a go at this one then. So this is the PreemYum Pils coming in, was at 5.6%. I thought it was 5.9 for a minute, but 5.6% ABV from In Brewing, one of the numerous gypsy breweries operating in Gothenburg, Göteborg. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Ooh, that is very nice. That is pretty damn solid, I have to say. Thumbs up to In Brewing for this one. Yeah, think this one gives you pretty much everything you'd want. I mean, you can feel the sort of dryness building in this one a little bit in the middle of the palate, and that, as I say, is the characteristic of the German Pilsner for me. But I do actually find this one, it's quite a soft and bready Pilsner beer, this one. But yeah, it is very, very nicely done. It does remind me a little bit of the Ectopils from OO Brewing to a degree. So yeah, this one just goes together, I think, very, very nicely. Yeah. Where do we start with this one then? It's got everything you'd expect, and this is often what I say about these Pilsner beers. You can find really nice examples. This is a very nice example of style, and it gives you everything you want. It's just one of these beers that's really, really well crafted. So let's try and break down the flavour of this one then and see how we go. So straight away across the middle third of your palate, you've got a little bit of a more kind of bread crusty quality in there. You can feel that nice sort of bread crusty note just blanketing the middle of your tongue. So yeah, I do like how that goes together in this one, absolutely. But the, how would we say, the so you get that, you can feel that the further you go into the aftertaste, with though underneath that sort of wet white bready layer, you can feel some of the dryness of the Pilsner malt just pushing its way out. So middle third and back third of your palate, as I say, you get a little bit of that bread crusty grainy layer just forming the backbone of the beer. On top of that, you get the slightly more wet white bready kind of character coming out of it. So yeah, you feel that about this beer as well. So lovely sort of wet white bready character to this one, definitely. But then if we focus on the middle third of your palate, if you go to either end of that middle third of your tongue, you get a bit of a stronger, grainier bread crust in there. Then on the back half of that middle third of your palate, there's a kind of drier, crisper Pilsner quality coming out of the beer. So I really like how that goes together in this one. So yeah, you can feel that takes over the beer a little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste. So yeah, that nice dry Pilsner malt is mainly in that, concentrated in that back half of the middle third of your palate. But if you focus on top of that, you get a little bit of a kind of oily circle in the middle of your palate there, and that's where the brown sugary elements from the Pilsner malt are coming out. So in the dead centre of your tongue, you've got a wee bit of a kind of concentrated heavy brown sugary note. Then as you move further out from that, it's got a little bit more, it's certainly got a little bit more of a, yeah, it's got a wee bit more of a kind of, as I would say, like a slightly sweeter, you get a little bit more of a kind of sweeter, almost slightly honey type thing, but then as you push out towards the extremities of that middle third of your palate, you get the more McVitie's digestive biscuity notes out of this one. But I would say the kind of drier elements from the Pilsner malt in this beer push their way out a little bit more. So I really like how that goes together in this one, for sure. The middle third of your palate in this one is quite nice, and it does remind me to a degree of Ectopils from OO Brewing, actually. So that is quite a nice one on that side. But we've covered the middle third of your palate now. Let's go on to the back third of your tongue. So border region between middle third and back third of your palate, again you get a little bit of a bready build up in there. You can feel that little bit of a more kind of bread crusty quality. The base of that back third of your tongue, as we say, a little bit of a bread crusty note, wet white bread on top of it. Then you can feel the kind of more yeasty notes. You can feel the more yeasty qualities coming out of this one for sure. But yeah, in terms of the white bready notes in there, and things like that. The yeasty character is composed like of a more kind of light, airy, white bready character, but you get a fair wee bit of Pilsner malty dryness in there almost as well, which is kind of interesting. And you do get one or two little crackery elements sitting in the aftertaste of this beer, but when you start at the back of your palate, you can feel the flavour is a bit taller. It condenses itself down as you come further forward. Then as you go into the middle third of your palate, you can just feel that the flavours are a little bit more kind of squashed together actually. So I think that works very, very well with this one, and it gets a thumbs up from me in that regard. So yeah, the malty, yeasty side of things in this beer is pretty nicely done. Let's focus on the hoppy part of the beer then. So back corners of the palate, you've certainly got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it gets a little touch herbal, and then as you push towards the kind of front corners of the palate, it's got a little bit more of a kind of big floral aromatic sort of thing to it. So yeah, you've got a nice little bit of spiciness there sitting underneath, which will be the Czech Sats hop, I would say. It'll be the Czech Sats that's giving you that. But then on top of it, you have a little bit more of you've got a little bit more of that kind of bright Hallertau type note coming out of the beer. So yeah, you've got those bright Hallertau notes in there giving you the brighter floral aromatic notes. But then round the front curve of the tongue, this beer is distinctly more light and grassy, I would say. And again, I can really appreciate how that comes out in this beer. I think it works very, very well. But yeah, on the on the fruity side of things, I don't think we need to say a little bit more about the green component, other than the fact that yeah, you've got that bit of grassiness there, and it does get a wee bit more zesty the further that you go into the aftertaste. But let's focus on that front third of your palate now. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of a bready build-up. In there you get a little bit of that bready build-up and a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty note. Then the base of that, the base of that front third of your palate is a little bit more kind of bready, and you do get a wee bit of the kind of crispness out of it too. But sitting on top of that, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer, and the fruity notes you get in this one are pretty much what you'd expect. So if you go to the back of that front third of your palate, there's a wee bit of a kind of concentrated citrusy note there, but as you move further forward, it sort of mellows out a little bit to give you a wee bit of a kind of apricot-y note. You get a little touch of that kind of usual sultana type quality, the dried green, white, grapey notes. But then as you push into the front half of that front third of your palate, the beer gets just a little bit more oily. There's a nice kind of peary thing in there. Then as you push towards the very tip of the tongue, it's got a little bit of a sort of spicy apple kind of quality to it. So yeah, I do like how this beer goes about its business actually. From that sense, there's some really nice there's some really nice sort of fruity elements to this one, which I think are worth I really linger there nicely into the aftertaste. But yeah, as I say, this beer does develop a wee bit of a dryness and a real crispness to it. So for a 5.9%er, I think this one is still really nicely, nicely drinkable, I guess we could say, or easily drinkable. My English is getting terrible these days, I have to say, thinking in Swedish too much. But yeah, I think this beer goes about its business very, very nicely. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the tasting side of things. So yeah, let's have a little look at the mouthfeel then, just to round off this review. So yeah, for me, the mouthfeel of this beer is a light-bodied beer. It's very, very crisp, which is what you want from a lager. That's exactly what you want, stating the obvious. But yeah, you always want a nice little bit of crispness from your lager. So this beer gets a thumbs up from me in that particular regard. So yeah, nice level of crispness coming out of this beer, that's for sure. But I think overall I would describe it as quite wet. A little bit of slickness in there, but it does have a wee bit of dryness the further you go into the aftertaste. The malty base in this one is quite smooth. There's a wee bit of sweetness on top, but again, you get a little bit of that graininess and dryness out of the beer, and there's a good little bit of hoppy bitterness to this one. I think this one's maybe about maybe a little bit more than 30 IBUs. It could be 35 or 40 actually. There's a wee bit more bitterness to this beer. I would say. So I think, yeah, about 30, maybe a bit more than 30 IBUs in this one, but it certainly gives you a wee bit of that. Fruity side of the beer has a mixture of dry, kind of dried fruit and oily character, and again, I think that suits it. But yeah, it's just a really solid Pilsner beer, this one, and it certainly stylistically gives you that more kind of dry, crisp side of things that you would expect of the German Pilsner, but it's certainly the unfiltered character that it has, you know, the kind of breadiness and things like that, and the light airy yeasty notes, those are a bit more akin to a Czech Pilsen, but it does lean towards the German side of things, definitely a lot kind of cleaner and crisper, if you like, rather than having a wee, you know, yeasty kind of smoothness to it, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think this one goes together very, very nicely, so it gets a big thumbs up from me. Only complaint, as I say, would be that it's sold in 330s rather than 440s, but you know, when these guys are Gypsy Brewing, there's a can shortage at the moment. You know, they kind of have to take what they can get, so we're not going to hold that against them. But yeah, if they could make this a core beer, I think that would sell very, very well, actually. So again, big thumbs up to All In Brewing for this one. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from All In Brewing. If you're in the market, if you're in the mood or the market, whatever, for a good lager beer, then this one is definitely worth checking out. So many breweries in Sweden now producing good lagers, and I'm glad to see that these styles are getting a little bit more attention. But check out my social media, check out All In Brewing social media. This one was the PreemYum Pilsner. Coming in at 5.9% ABV from All In Brewing, one of the numerous Gothenburg gypsy breweries. Slanja, skål, cheers, and see you guys on the next review.